flashing thing down in there. Okay, here we go. What's Photoshop about? What does it do? Yeah, but you can edit other things other than photos on there. At its core, what is Photoshop? It can be more than just photos. It can be graphic design, it can be documents. What is Photoshop? What makes it different from Illustrator or InDesign? Do you know what Photoshop is? A kind of hodgepodge, messy one that they've let people get in there and set up as like there's a bar in there and there's, you know, there's a garage. It's a real mess. One word I'm looking for here, and I urge you to take notes throughout this as well. Pixels. Yeah? Photoshop at its core is a pixel editing program. Hey, join us. If I take an image here and zoom in on it, you will soon start to see these little squares of colour, and these are pixels. When it comes to creating digital imagery, there's kind of two ways to go about it. There's pixels, and does anybody know what the other type is? It's what Illustrator uses. Vector, that's right. So vector is more about points and paths that create shapes on a page. With Photoshop, anytime we make an image, we need to get all these little squares together and stack them up, and we need a lot of them because we don't actually want to see them. If we start seeing our pixels, things have gone wrong. This is what we want to avoid in Photoshop. What do we call the measurement of pixels? Resolution. Very good. And resolution is fundamental to understand when you're working in Photoshop. The worst thing that you want to do is end up with a low-res image where you see the pixels and it just looks terrible. So this is one of the key things that we're aiming to avoid. So resolution, if I take, we measure it in pixels per inch, PPI. You might have heard of DPI as well, dots per inch. When we've got an image on screen, we've got pixels, so we talk PPI. When we print, we get dots. We don't print pixels, they become dots. And that's where we get DPI. But those two terms are kind of used as the same thing. To measure the resolution of our image, we take an inch, a linear inch, and we count all the squares along that line. Okay? And that gives us our PPI. Who knows how many pixels per inch we're looking for if we want to do a high quality print of an image? 300. 300. Write that down there. Ideal print resolution, 300 PPI. This is essential.
Is that like the minimum or just...
No, that's the ideal number that we want. Yeah.
If we go over that, still good.
If you go over it, is your image going to look better? What do we think? If I print an image at 1,000 pixels per inch, is it going to look heaps better? Yes. Why won't it look any better? Yeah. Our eyes can't see beyond 300 pixels per inch. So that's why that becomes the cutoff. Also, the printer has a maximum that it can actually print. Now, 300 is the standard for high quality quality printing. So if you're working on something that's got a, going to go into a magazine or a poster or anything like that, you're going to be looking at 300 pixels per inch. But if you're doing in-house stuff, and we do a lot of this, printing on our, global printers, these laser printers don't print up to 300 pixels per inch. They pretty much are going to wind off somewhere around 150 to 200 pixels per inch. So if you know that you're producing a document that's only ever going to be printed in-house, then you can get away with a lower resolution. And you'll see why that might be something to keep in mind once we get in and start doing some image sizing. Minimum print resolution, 150. Write that number down. Minimum print resolution, 150. Anything under 150 pixels per inch, you're going to start seeing pixels with your naked eye. Yeah? So if you're pulling an image down, this is a classic scenario. You're doing a document, you pull an image down off the web, off a website, or you do a Google image search or something. And it's screen resolution. Any idea what PPI, an image that we pull down off the web, is most likely going to be? 72 pixels per inch. Did I make a thing for that? I don't think I did, but write that number down. 72 pixels per inch. This is your screen resolution. Now that gets a little complicated because every screen that we view an image on has different resolutions. Let me give you an example of that. Now, if I open up a website on this, and on this, I'm going to see that same website, but physically, the image is going to be vastly different size. Okay? It's because of the resolution. If, as you walk past this screen when we take a break later, get up here and you will very clearly see the pixels on that screen. Stick your head up really close to these monitors. Now these monitors are pretty high res, but if you have a good close look, you'll probably be able to just see the pixels on there. Sorry? Well, I could get a ruler out and I could measure an inch here and I could count those pixels, which I can just see, and that would tell me the resolution. Or I could go into my computer settings and I could see what resolution is being output to that screen. But the moral of the story is, if I've got an image that's, say, 500 pixels wide, 500 pixels wide on this screen is going to be quite large. On this screen, it's going to be this big. And on this screen, it's going to be much, much smaller. So when we're talking about screen resolution, it's relative to the resolution of your screen. Complicated. This takes a little while to get your head around. Let's jump in and open. I've just re-downloaded this folder myself, so give me a second to grab this. Where did we get to? We're going to open up some images. Photoshop is one of the few programs where you can actually discover what the resolution and the physical size of an image is. There's not many other programs that will give you that information. So let's choose one to have a look at. Resize for print. Okay, there should be one in there called Resize for print. So if you're in Photoshop and you go File, Open, can you find that image? Stupidly on these RMIT machines, if I right-click on an image and say Open with, Photoshop is not an option. It's just the way they've imaged these machines. What I can do is I'm going to right-click. You guys are going in through Photoshop, so that will fix it. But I'm going to go choose a default program. And look, it doesn't even come up as a recommended program until I click on this tiny little thing here, in which case I can find the world's most common image editing program, which you think they might chuck in there as a suggested application. Okay, so this image here. How do we know what we can do with this image? Can we stick this in our page layout that's going to be printed to become, a magazine? Can I scale it up to fit a full page of it? What can I do with this image? It's very difficult to tell just by looking at it. So in Photoshop, this is one of the key things, one of the key places you can go to identify information about your image. Let's go to Image and Image Size. Now, this image size panel gives me all the information about the resolution of that image and how it's distributed. Problem? All good? Yep. So up the top here, the first thing I get is, and I've got some, you'll see as we go on, I've got some issues with Photoshop because there's a lot of things that are kind of poorly designed, which is crazy for the world's leading design software manufacturers to have things poorly designed. Image size. What that should really say there is file size. Yeah, that's talking about the actual size in kilobytes, megabytes, etc. of the image itself. 806 kilobytes, just under 1 megabyte is the file size of that. Next we get the pixel dimensions. Now this is something that I imagine everyone's done a Google image search before. Yeah? Now, as I go in, see as I hover over these images, down here, it gives me these numbers. These are the pixel dimensions. It's not telling me the resolution in terms of PPI, but it is telling me overall how many pixels there are. This one here is 5,000 pixels by 3,000 pixels. Okay? We may not know what that means to us yet. This one here is 300 pixels by 300 pixels. Huge, huge difference. Now, looking at them here, they both look fine, and you might think that I can equally use this image to stick on the cover of my document as I can this one. This one, up in the thousands, here's an easy way to think about it. If your pixel dimensions are up in the thousands, that's a relatively high resolution image. If your pixel resolution, if your pixel dimensions are in the hundreds, that's low res. If you search for an image and you find something that's got anything under 1,000 by 1,000 pixels there, basically forget your chances of printing it. Yeah, just look for another image. Here's a good trick while I'm in here if you are looking to steal some images to use in that document. You can go up to Search Tools, and that opens up an extra panel of options. You can go to Size and click on Large, and now it will only show me large images, and they'll typically all be in the thousands. Make sure if you are taking images from Google that don't copy the thumbnail. You'll just be taking a low-res image. You need to open it up and wait for it to load and take it from there. That'll be a nice high-res image. So back to Photoshop. Those pixel dimensions there, that's exactly the same expression that Google Images is showing me. So tell me, this image, can I print it? I can try, but it's not going to be very good. So now I get down to what this should say here is print dimensions, okay? This is, because have a look, this image is way bigger than 22 centimeters on that screen. And even on this screen here, it's above 22 centimeters. And if I opened it up on this, it'd be much smaller than 22 centimeters. This here very specifically refers to print dimensions. So if I hit print on this image right now, and I don't resize it in my print dialog box, it will print out at 22 centimeters wide. But look at the resolution, 72 pixels. What did I say was the minimum resolution you could print at? Yeah, so this is like less than half of that. You will see, regardless of how average your eyesight is, if you print this and take a good look at it, you are going to see pixels. Okay. So, can I increase the resolution? This is our next question. Can I do it? The answer is yes, you can, but there's a catch. And there's two ways of increasing resolution. Has everybody got this image open? Yep, we're going to do this. So at the moment, see, I've got this button by default turned on that says Resample. What Resample means, it's also called interpolation. It means Photoshop is going to make up pixels for us, okay? So let's try this out. Resolution, currently on 72. We would like to print this. Let's pop that up to 300. Now, I get a preview in this screen. Drag around to somebody's face, which is a good spot to kind of identify how something looks. Have a good close look at it there. See what it looks like. So it's made up the pixels, but it leaves me with an image that's generally blurry, clunky, chunky, ugly. There are now 300 pixels per inch in there, but it's just that those pixels were made up, and so the image doesn't really look very good. Okay, so that's called resampling or interpolating the image, and that's turned on by default. Let's cancel that. Let's go back up to image and image size. The other option is to turn off resample. Let's turn that off. And see how now it's linked my width and my height to my resolution right here. These are, with that on, I had width and height connected. When I turn it off, now it connects all of those together. That means as I change one, the others are all going to change. So the first way to increase resolution is to let Photoshop make up pixels, which it's not very good at. The second way to do it is to shrink the image. Think about it. If I've got 72 pixels in an inch and I want to get more of them, I get that image and I make it smaller. My pixels are all getting smaller, more of them are fitting into an inch. So let's see what we get with this image now if we change that to 300. Notice that this hasn't changed now. My preview hasn't changed. It's looking as good as it was, which wasn't fantastic. It's not a great image. It's a bit out of focus. It's a bit underexposed. But this will now, if I print this now, it will print at 5 centimeters wide, but it will be at 300 pixels per inch. Does that make sense? Yeah. So they're your two methods of increasing resolution. And the better method is to shrink the image. But you can do a little bit of each. And often that's what we go for. So let's try now doing a little bit of each. So we've started by not resampling. We've started by basically just shrinking the image down to get the resolution. Let's turn on Resample again, because we're like, I want to use this image, but I really want to print it a little bit bigger, like 5 centimeters is pretty small. Now what I'm going to do is start to push my size. I'm going to say I would love this image to, I would love to be able to print it at 20 centimeters wide. Let's try that. Put in 20 centimeters in the width. Drag over till you're looking at something like a face in that little preview panel. What do you think of that quality? Acceptable? It's not very good, is it? Okay, maybe I'm pushing it too far. Let's try 10 centimeters. Have a look at that face. Still not very good, is it? Okay. Right. I'm going to try 7 centimeters. I'm like, yeah, look, I can probably get away with that. It's not an amazing looking image, but I would prefer to get it a little bit bigger on my page. And I feel like that's kind of as far as I'm prepared to push it. So you can mix those two methods of increasing resolution, and at the end of the day, you need to use your eye. And you need to take a good close look at it there, and you need to make a judgment call as to whether you feel that quality is acceptable or not. Any questions about that? No? Now, have you got those images that we're working from? You're all sorted? Cool. So when I say here, so they're the two methods. So ideal print resolution 300, minimum print resolution 150, screen resolution 72. The two methods, I can resample the image, i.e. get Photoshop to make up pixels, or I can shrink my image. And I can combine those two techniques in order to try and balance something out. What issues arise when I try to increase my resolution? I lose quality. Yeah? Okay, so we've resized this image for print. Alternatively, I could resize it for web by going back the other way. So if I want this image to be for web, let's just cancel that again and go to image size. Actually, let's go ahead and open up another image now. Go to File and Open and grab this, oh, hang on, no. Desktop, where are we? That's where I unzip that. There we go. Okay. So there's one in there called, I've renamed it Resize. Oh, I thought I did. Does anyone see a Resize for web in there? Oh, this one here. Hue saturation, Resize for web. Hue saturation, Resize for web. It's this image here. I've got no idea who these people are. I assume you do? The big boss. Which one? This guy. That's the dean. I've not met the dean. Let's look at some shortcut ways of getting a sense of what we've got when we're looking at an image. So see, as we open up multiples, how we get tabs across the top. And in the tab there, see how this one says at 100%? This is talking about the size that I'm currently viewing my image as. Okay, now let's try this, some shortcuts. Control minus and Control plus to zoom in and out. Now, if I zoom out, you'll see that number go down. So now I'm viewing it at 50%. If I zoom up to 200% for me. Control plus up to 200%. And have a close look at your screen. You should be able to see the pixels. Yeah? Regardless of what resolution your image is, if you view it in Photoshop above 100%, you will see pixels. Because what you're saying, 100% in Photoshop means one of your pixels in your image is being displayed through one of the pixels on your screen. Anything above that and those pixels are being multiplied, and you will see them. When you are looking at a photo in Photoshop, if you want to get a sense of the quality, this is super tip. You must know this. If you want to make a quality judgment on an image, you have to view it at 100%. You have to. Because if you look at it at 200%, it will look pixelated. And if you view it at less than 100%, it may be pixelated, but you don't know. Or there may be it may be out of focus, and you don't know. So I'm going to take that back to 100% there. And at 100%, that's how big this image is on my screen. Having a look now at this other image, see on my screen, I'm currently only viewing it at 12%. What does that tell me straight away? It's a high-res image. This is what you want. When you open a photo in Photoshop, if you're viewing it in the window, you really are hoping that the percentage that you're viewing at it is going to be right down there like that. Let's go to View, the View menu, and choose 100%. Now, hold the space bar on your keyboard. You'll get a little hand. Now you can drag around, drag onto a face, and take a look at that image there. That's what a high-res image looks like. If I zoom in that close on a face in here, see the difference? Yeah? Okay. Now at 100%, I can make a quality call on that image. So that image is pretty crisp. There's a little bit of noise and grain going on in there. The focus isn't dead sharp, but there's a lot of pixel information. Zoom in on that image once more. Take it to 200%. Look closely. Regardless of how high res it is, at 200% you will see pixels. Here's a nice shortcut. Control 0 will fit your image back into your window. Let's take a look at image size for this image. Image size. And again, with this preview, I always like to drag the image down. One of the best things that you can look at in an image is somebody's face, and in particular eyes, mouth, nose, those details. That's what you're looking to be sharp. So So comparing the image size details of this one, remember the other file was like, what was it? It was like 800 kilobytes, less than a meg. This one is 60 megabytes. That's huge. The pixel dimensions on this one, 5,000 by 3,000. This is great. And have a look at when I come down here, my resolution's already on 300, and the actual print size here, 40 centimeters wide. I can do all sorts of things with this image. And this is pretty much as big as you're ever going to get an image to play with. This is probably, this is probably taken on digital SLR, and it's uncompressed. This is kind of what you're going to get to deal with. So, but what if I want to print like 40 centimeters? Like, that's still only that big. What if I want to make a poster like that big and crop in on it? Okay, well, I'd like to leave my resolution there at 300 ideally for print, but I want to print this image at 100 centimeters. Let's try it. So there's two methods. The first method is to resample and let Photoshop make up pixels. So we leave that on and we just type 100 in there. Scrolling down to have a look at a face again. I'm right in there now. Now it's definitely, I'm starting to see more pixels and stuff, but I tell you, here's a little thing for you, here's some homework. Next time you walk past a photograph that's printed really big, down in a train station or something, you'll look like a bit of a weirdo, so maybe have a look around, see if anyone's looking. But just get up close to it and have a close look at it. It'll actually look fairly, the image quality won't look great. The difference is, see, if I'm printing something to go in a magazine, how do we look at magazines? We look at them like this, yeah? Maybe this, it's distance. The poster, you don't look at a poster that close. So that comes into it as well. A big billboard up on the road, if you've ever seen one of those up close, so they make like bags and stuff out of those old vinyl billboards. The resolution is so poor that you'd barely be able to make out what you're looking at if you were to look at it that close. So distance comes into it as well. This is why our phones now are so high resolution. I think these phones are 340 pixels per inch because we're looking at our phones like this, we're right in there. So I'll get away with this. While we're on the topic, under Resample, see I've got these options. Photoshop can make up the pixels for me, but I've got different methods, different algorithms that I can tell it to use. And it gives me some tips. So if I'm looking to enlarge it, do I want to opt towards preserving the details, the sharpness of those lines, or say the smoothness of the skin? Just having a look at an area like that, let's see if you can see any difference. I definitely can. One is grainier and there's more detail, and by cubic smoother, the skin tone smooths out, but I do lose a bit of sharpness. So you can choose what you want to do there. Okay, let's say cancel to that, and then let's pop back in image size. Now what happens if I go and stick this, I'm doing an update for the website. What happens if I stick this image on the web? To upload, yep, absolutely. It's going to take a long time to upload. And depending on what system you're using, now some systems will resize and compress your images on the fly. For example, Facebook, that'll do it all for you. You can just throw anything at it and it's just going to get your image and go crunch. But if you're I don't know our RMIT system, if it does that on the fly, but if you're doing something for the web, you really want to resize for it. Otherwise, this image on the web would be, here's a good thing, how big should we make an image to go on the web? I'm putting an image up. I'm doing a little update on the RMIT website. There's some people at a function drinking champagne, shaking each other's hands. You know the pictures. I'm putting that up there and writing a bit of text. How big should that image be? 10 centimeters, 20 centimeters, 30 centimeters? Can I think about it in centimeters? No. Yeah. Yeah. Centimeters, when it comes to screen, is completely irrelevant because, as I said before, that image is going to be, 5 centimeters on this screen, 20 centimeters on that, and a meter on that screen. I have to think in pixels. Back to these dimensions here. This is the way I need to think about an image if I'm going to put it online. But, we didn't grow up thinking in pixel dimensions. So we need a bit of a guide, and this is what I usually say. A typical website is somewhere around 1,000 pixels wide. Write that down. Website approximately 1,000 pixels wide. So with that in mind, if I'm doing an article and I want to put a little image up there, and I'm going to put some text beside it, I can go, right, website's about 1,000 pixels wide, I'll make my image 500 pixels wide, and that'll be approximately half. Okay? So I could come in and work with that here. I can, just the way we tweaked this, so I could come in and make this, I could turn off Resample and I could say I want that to be 72. Whoop, no, I need Resample on, sorry. And it's just like, oh, actually, no. I can do it in here. I can go and change this to pixels and do it in here, but I don't recommend it. So let's cancel that. So we've got this huge print resolution image and we want to prepare it to put it on the web. Let's go to File and let's go to Save for Web. Where have they put it? Have they tucked it in there now? They have. Each new version they like to move Save for Web around. It used to be just there under Save As. So under Export now, we've got Save for Web. Legacy means we've just had an upgrade and they've redone the way they want us to do this, but I am not quite endorsing it yet. Legacy means the way it's been for the last 10 years. So it gives us this panel. If you're on last month's version of Photoshop, this will be your only option. Okay, so here I am. This is my Save for Web dialog box. I can do this out of my other Adobe programs as well. If I make something up in Illustrator, I can also go and do this. So, coming up here now, this is going to jump us forward a little bit to talk about file formats or file types. If you have a look on the back of your sheet there, I've written down the ones that you should probably be aware of. There are others. No, you're late. No sheet for you. Okay, so up the top here, where it says GIF, I think it's silly that they have GIF as the first option there. GIFs are old school, man. We don't use them anymore. What's that? Well, now, see, GIFs are actually so old school that they've now been reappropriated. When we hear GIF now, we think like cat dancing, something like that. That's an animated GIF. GIF is actually a form of compression, okay? Because think about it, when we're going to the web, we want to get the file size of the image as small as possible so it can download as quickly as possible, yeah? But we also want it to look as good as possible. So GIF is form of compression that compresses by limiting the number of colors that are used in an image. And as those animated GIFs that we see, you know how they look a bit dotty and funny? That's the limited color palette that you're seeing. Okay, so this is a form of compression. GIF doesn't mean animated. Animated is a type of GIF that's now taken over, and when we think GIF now, we think dancing cats, because no one uses GIF as a static image format anymore. Okay? JPEG. The world's most common image format. Yeah? If you get an image, there's probably 70% chance it's going to be a JPEG. 70 to 80% chance it's going to be a JPEG. We'll come back and we'll compare some of these in a second. PNG, annoyingly, there's two versions. Just go for the big one, the new one, PNG 24. This is what I would like to see them move up as the default file type for this, because this is what I use all the time for the web now. PNG 24. So if you remember nothing else about file formats for the web, remember that Ben endorses PNG 24. Okay? Yep. Yep. So let's break this down a little bit and look at why. So I'll come back to this in a second. Now, at the moment, this image is so large that I'm just right there on the dean's face. Not where I want to be right now. So let's scroll down. You don't need to change too much there, but what we've got down towards the bottom is a simplified version of the image size panel. Okay? So we decided that we're going to make our image 500 pixels wide, because we're going to put it in a little thing with some text beside it. So where it says image size there, and see, it doesn't even give me an option for centimeters or anything. We're saving for web here, so it's pixels. So I'm going to pop 500 in there, and if you then just click in the next thing, that will resize for you. And now you're seeing the image at the actual size that it's going to be. This is a WYSIWYG situation. We know WYSIWYG. No one knows WYSIWYG? What you see is what you get. Okay? What you're looking at here now is what you are going to get. So, let's use this now to look at the different file types. Just quickly, let's pop that back up to GIF. And I'm just going to zoom in a little bit on this, just so that you guys can see a bit clearer. So, GIF compresses by reducing colors. So here's my option here, reducing the amount of colors. Okay, there's that image at 2 colors, 4 colors, 8 colors. Do you remember when the internet looked like this? Yeah, I do. And as you notch it up, it gets more and more. But even kind of up at higher levels, you get this kind of gify stuff. And you know, the dancing cats look like that, yeah? It's just that they're moving. Okay, GIF, we don't want to use it. JPEG. JPEG compresses in a different kind of way. It basically breaks your image into a grid. It takes a square of pixels, and instead of remembering every single pixel, it kind of blends them together, and so it can remember smaller chunks of information. So if you take your quality slider and put it all the way down, you're going to refresh for me there? That's weird, it's not actually previewing that there for me. Oh, that's right, didn't go down, I missed. There we go, that's what I'm looking for. So if I zoom in on this a bit, you'll be able to see how it's divided the entire image up into squares, And then it's kind of running these like gradients around in there. This is how a JPEG compresses. As I bring that quality slider up, it does it less and less and less. Now, are JPEGs bad? No. JPEGs are actually really good. Are JPEGs only for screen? No. I send JPEGs. If I'm working on a document that is going off for high quality printing, I'm not scared to send a JPEG. You shouldn't be either. As long as you consider two factors. First of all, the quality. If I'm going to send this to print, I want that quality slider mashed right up to 100. Now, for the record, I'm talking about JPEGs broadly. If I'm sending an image to print, I am not using the Save for Web dialog box to save it. Yeah? Because what am I doing by doing that? What's the other factor to be aware of? Other than my JPEG compression if I'm sending something to print? The resolution. As soon as I use Save for Web, what resolution is it going to put my image in? 72. No good. Okay? But if I'm just exporting a JPEG just by going File, Export for print, quality slider on absolute maximum. And resolution, I've gone into image size and I've set my resolution to 300. I can tell you, if I do that and I send that image to print, and I send it on a page right next to the same image which I've saved as a TIFF. Anybody familiar with TIFFs? It's another file format that you may have heard of. Okay. Now that JPEG, let's say I'm only going to print it this big. That JPEG might be a megabyte in size, or it might even be less. Exactly the same image saved as a TIFF might be like 30 megabytes. They're going to look exactly the same when they print, as long as I keep that quality on maximum and my resolution at 300. Okay, PNG 24, how does it compress? It does it behind the scenes without any visual loss. So it's compressing the image, it's going to bring it right down, but it's not going to change your image quality at all. So that's one reason I like a PNG 24 for web, because you don't have to think about it. You know your image is just going to look as good as it can be. That's good, right? Now I could still do that with a JPEG by putting that quality slider up to maximum. So there's one other benefit of a PNG over a JPEG. Anybody know what it is? The file size. The file size will probably come out. The PNG will be a little bit bigger. Okay? But there's one really cool thing that a PNG can do that a JPEG cannot do. Transparency. Yeah? You're saving a logo. It's a circular logo. You've cut out the background of it so you can stick it on the website so that the color of the website comes through around that logo. If you save it as a PNG, beautiful, no problem. You save it as a JPEG, you're going to have a white background. JPEGs cannot have transparency. I would take some of these notes here where I say file type. So let's kind of summarize it. So JPEG, I would be writing most common image format. I would be saying it's okay for screen and it's okay for print, as long as the resolution and quality are at maximum. PNG, do not use for print. These are screen only. don't save them for print. Use for web. They're really, really good for web. And the key benefit of them, transparency. It's just the new one.
So with the PNG, if you're saving the file and save it as, you cannot use that PNG 24/7.
Do you mean if I just go save as like that? PNG, it probably gives you options somewhere, or maybe not. No, doesn't give me the options. I never make a PNG like that, because I'm always if I want a PNG, it's for web, and if I'm saving for web, I always want to use the save for web dialog. Yeah.
And if the image is for printing, that we need the image and we're gonna send to someone for printing, which is the more like it's the best format?
Okay, so well, let's tick through some more of that. So short answer to your question, Mihail, JPEG. Easy. As long as your resolution's on 300 and your quality's on 100%. Because a JPEG will play with anything. Yeah? Anyone can open a JPEG. Any program will accept a JPEG. Yeah? If you save it as, a different, like, say you're like, I'm going to save it as a TIFF because I think the quality's going to be better, half your programs won't accept it. The file's going to be huge and the quality's not going to be better. So seriously, I would say TIFF, forget about it.